technology always has good and bad sides, right? So I'm not demonizing EMFs like many others, because I think there's value in it. But if we can find a way to live with them in a good and healthy manner and use them, that's the deal. Quantum energy is the energy behind the matter, behind what we can touch. And also in every cell, we have a quantum energy field. That's how the cells communicate constantly and instantly. That's the very same energy that we were able to harness in a super concentrated fashion and also pure.
Philipp, welcome to the podcast. It's been a long time coming. Many of my friends have been sharing about this quantum technology. I've experienced it myself. Thank you for being here.
Well, thanks for having me on. I'm looking forward to our chat.
Me too. It's funny, I was doing a lot of research about you, and you're the CEO of Leela Quantum, this energy-based technology company. But yet you're trained in energy healing and shamanic practices and past life regression. That's an interesting blend. How did that come to be, the technology and also the healing and the shamanic practices? That's a unique path.
Yeah, so, when I was born, at some point in my childhood, I completely forgot myself, if you will, and I even cut myself up from emotions and feelings quite a lot. I would say probably like 99% of the population in general. And I ended up in a corporate career because that's just the role I played, and I was pretty good at it. Ended up being a vice president at T-Mobile internationally, and was an executive officer even at a very large company in the US. But in 2000, the early 2000, I figured, wow, there's so much more to life than what I am living, and this, rational, focused life and all that. And there I started to tap into meditation, into yoga, and at some point that culminated into, participating in workshops and then getting the curiosity to get trained in, shamanic practices and the things you mentioned. So that's what I kind of did in parallel. And then in 2016, fast forward, the stretch was too big for me to be who I am and know who I am, but still playing that role in corporate. I couldn't do it anymore. I really couldn't. And that's when I started to just work from my heart, basically. And whenever there's an impulse or a calling, that's kind of where I tuned in and followed that. And that, in a nutshell, was the path that also led to the quantum technology. In between, there was one more aspect. My wife had gotten really sick. She had been diagnosed with chronic Lyme disease. And I took on the challenge to always find the next best stuff that could help her. And while she had her own abilities, it's always tough for healers to heal themselves. It's way easier to help other people.
Yes.
She did a lot for herself, but I think she appreciated what I did. And for me, that was suddenly finding the passion of, alternative healing modalities. And throughout my work and all my experiences, and also getting to know some of the most amazing healers in the world, that's what culminated into the quantum technology, where it's basically a tech to help people.
Yes.
And
we're going to go.
In fact, it's not just for people.
We're going to go deep into the technology for sure, because I have a ton of questions. I find it fascinating that you were an executive for T-Mobile. Your soul said no. And isn't it ironic to see all these 5G frequencies that are so harmful, and now you're using frequencies to help people heal? It's an interesting juxtaposition.
Yes, absolutely. And I think it's good to know both sides, if you will. The good thing is also that when I was there, I can say that none of the people working there, except maybe on the very top, were really aware of, the damages of that. Those people honestly wanted to make great products and help people connect and all that. And that's what you're about, that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
You didn't even, think about that. That may have changed by now, because I think a lot more awareness in regards to 5G and all of that have come out. And it's indeed ironic in a way. On the other hand, technology always has good and bad sides, right? So I'm not demonizing EMFs like many others, because I think there's value in it. We really have a lot of value from them. But if we can find a way to live with them in a good and healthy manner and use them, that's the deal. And that's kind of what we've come up with, that you can still use everything, but you're not affected by it.
Yes. Why do you call it Leela? Why is the name Leela?
Well, Leela means divine play. It's a word that originates out of the Sanskrit. And yeah, it just felt like the right name. And, as a little coincidence, our son is also called Leela.
Oh, that's your son's name.
Yep.
Beautiful. How old is your son?
14.
Oh, he's 14. I have almost an 11-month-old, so I have quite the journey before then. It's interesting. Your wife is a clairvoyant. She's well known in Europe as a healer. You yourself, with the energy that you provide to people, which we're going to talk about, it's really life force energy, whether you want to call it prana or chi or energy. Everything's energy. How has that played out? What do you do together as a couple for the company? Is it a shared experience of passion, or was Leela really something that came from your heart and your dharma?
Yeah, it really came from me. That's where it originates. And I've worked a whole lot with Roman Hafner on this, who's a super, super special healer from Europe. They call him the Wunderkind. My wife helped with certain aspects along the way, and she also provides a few frequencies. And so definitely there was involvement, but it was really me, coordinating everything and having the calling for this and moving it forward and orchestrating, what we have today.
Do you find that in all the healers that and in the couples that you meet that have like a shared mission, that it's really important that both people are on board? In other words, she believes in the quantum technology, she feels it, she sees it, she contributes to it. Has that played out to be true?
Yes, I mean, it's definitely positive, and it's helpful, and it's always nice if you have someone that has such viewing and seeing capabilities to give input, provide input on what we're doing. Yeah.
There's a cafe here in Austin, and my friend Khalil owns it. He's been on the podcast. And I went in there one day and he had this block. So if you're watching on YouTube, this is the Quantum Bloc, and they charge food in the block. And I started to look on the website, and I looked at what you did with the water studies and all the research that you have, and the dark field microscopy, which we're going to talk about. But in a nutshell, this technology, everything is technology. I mean, the hieroglyphics were technology, right? Any kind of information that we share with one another, whether it's quantum or not, it's all technology. And I agree with you. There's two sides, right? Technology can hurt, but technology can heal. So that's real for me. For people that don't know what this block actually is that I held up, or maybe they've seen me on different podcasts with the Heal necklace, which has the titanium balls in it. Tell us on a high level, don't go too deep yet because we're going to unpack it slow, but on a high level, what is actually going on with the block, with the necklace, with quantum energy itself?
Yeah. Before I answer that, I want to say that with this technology, there's actually no manipulative or negative side where someone could get hurt, unless you were to take that thing and hit it on someone's head. That's obviously something that you wouldn't want to do. So what is quantum energy? Quantum energy is the energy behind the matter. I guess we kind of understand the concept in the audience that, the body's mainly water. That's the first thing. Oh, am I really that much water? I don't feel like I'm just water, but there's so much water. But then there's 99% space within us, literally, right? And that's also hard to understand, but we kind of know it. And so quantum energy is the energy behind the matter, behind what we can touch. And also in every cell, we have a quantum energy field. That's how the cells communicate constantly and instantly. So that's the very same energy that we were able to harness in a super concentrated fashion, and also pure. And that is very important because there have been some attempts to harness and leverage quantum energy, but they weren't in a pure form. They would use magnetic brute force or electric brute force. And either way, you can have some quantum energy in it, but then the electric or magnetic brute force would destabilize the field, which causes in itself energetic stress for the body. We completely eliminated that. That's also why, when you have that, it feels so harmonious. It feels natural because that's what it is.
This natural energy, Tesla and Dispenza and a lot of people have talked about the quantum a lot. For somebody that doesn't know what the quantum is, and I've heard many different descriptions. And I think, Philipp, I'm curious how you feel. We try to put our mind to define what quantum is, to define what we cannot see, but we can feel. I don't know exactly how a cell phone works. I don't know exactly how Wi-Fi works. I don't know exactly how electricity works or even fire. I mean, these are magical substances that we are just beginning to understand. But if somebody's just looking at this at first glance, what is quantum on a simplified level?
Yeah. So one is the definition I just gave, and the other one is the experiential definition. That's where I would ask you, to close your eyes and just feel. And that's what you would do in meditation. But for people that have never meditated, just go inwards and feel. Feel your body at first, but then feel even outside. And you will at some point feel this energy. It's this energy around you. And as you go deeper into that and concentrate more on that, that is this type of energy that you can tap in. That's actually also the field of knowing that you can tap in, because that's where the definitions and the functionalities actually blend. But that's how you do that, because the actual knowing isn't really in the brain. There's memories and there's things we learn and all that, but the real knowing is more like a database that we can access, but we kind of need to unlock this consciousness gate, if you will, more and more. And meditation is just one of the many tools that you can use. By the way, you can also use these blocks for that, because they help open these gates and to unlock more of that. But yeah, that's really the feeling, like feel that energy. And yeah, and that's also the energy you can create with certain activities, right? Whether it's Kundalini yoga or, there's many different ways.
I noticed there's something really fascinating here if y'all are watching on YouTube. On the top of the block, there's this interesting design. And at first glance, it looked like something from nature. It looked like a plant or something like the Fibonacci sequence or something spherical. What does the design on the block have to do with its potency?
So we could, in theory, eliminate it, because it would still work. But it's a specific mandala, actually, and that's the mandala that stands for love, peace, and unity all together. And that was the right one to choose for this. I can't describe it in any other way. It's just like you check in and, okay, that's that. And we have a friend who's a clairvoyant artist out of Europe. And all she does is she designs jewelry, and she creates mandalas for people and for companies for certain aspects. And even for every frequency we create, we always ask her, this is the frequency we have. Can you please create a mandala specifically for that? Because then it goes well with it and it's beautiful. And yeah, so I think so. If you look at that, you may recognize just intuitively this aspect of unity, peace, and love.
Yeah, well, it feels good. I mean, the biggest report card that we have is how we feel, right? Like you talked about that earlier, when we just slow down, pause, and just sense what's around us. I had a mentor tell me once that silence is pregnant with all the world's possibility all at once. So even in the silence is deafening, because there's so much potential in the silence. And you mentioned frequency, which, we're no stranger to frequency. We've had a lot of different explorations, specifically in our breath work. I'm a breath work facilitator and practitioner myself. And a lot of our breath work, we infuse with binaural technology, which is different healing frequencies, whether it's delta or theta or alpha 2, which is the holy grail. When you talk about frequencies, though, with Leela Quantum, how do you actually identify which frequency is best? And then how do you infuse that frequency?
Yep. So infusing, that happens with our technology because, such a block you can actually use to copy frequencies into pretty much any object. So that's the first thing. And then, we can leverage any frequency that exists, but we mainly leverage etheric frequencies and molecular frequencies. So what are the differences? So a molecular frequency would be, let's say you take a vitamin C pill and you copy that frequency with our technology onto a silver coin or into a glass of water or wherever. That is a molecular frequency because it comes from a physical substance. So you literally just copy that information. Frequency is information. But then we create frequencies that go way above that because not everything is available as a molecular substance. And then we work with people like Roman Hafner, for example. Roman Hafner, he was born with the ability to see each and every frequency and vibration, and he couldn't see matter the way that we're used to seeing matter. Like you see this chair, it's wood and all that. He would only see the vibrations. And for a few years, he had to learn this matter seeing because he would see your heartbeat. He would see what's going on in your intestines and in your eyes, which is a gift because he could tell you also, well, you have something in your ear and you need to actually get that fixed. Otherwise, some disease may develop or, whatever it may be. And so he can go, like you can go in your living room and pick a white candle. If I asked you to take it into another room, that's the analogy for him going into a space and isolating different frequencies. So it's as easy as you picking the candle for him, literally. And so if we create a frequency for, let's say, weight loss or for inner peace, then it's all about finding the ideal composition, frequency composition or orchestration that gives people that signal to get into the state of inner peace as this one example. And he can do that. He can literally pull it out of the ether exactly how it needs to be. And then in some cases, we add some molecular frequencies to it. So that's pretty much the process. And it's interesting because we work as a company in a different cadence than most other companies. Usually you test things out and you test for like 10 years until you have something that actually works. And then you refine it and all that. We work in the way we already know because of the abilities of the healers that we work with. This is the ideal product and this is what it does. And we already know it. And then we go into testing and validation and into studies. And so far, each and every time, everything has been validated 100% by all tests and studies.
I love the research on the site too. We'll link that wherever you're watching this or listening. It's right here below wherever you're listening. There was a really cool study. And it was from the Emoto Institute. And we all know about this, the Dr. Emoto with structuring water. There was a cool experiment. I'm sure you've heard of this. In a high school, they had two plants at the end of a hallway. One of the plants, they fed them each the same amount of water. One of the plants, the students would love it and give it compliments. And the other plant, the students would berate it and disrespect the plant. And the plant actually started to die, the one that they were really like abusing. And when Emoto looked at, with his technology, I don't know if it was Emoto himself, but the Emoto process where they actually look at the water was sick almost, just from the energy that people were giving it. And I've heard this from many, many people as well. How did you get linked up with the Emoto Institute? Because this is one of the key aspects of the research.
Yes. So, energy in water is amazing, and water is just as a substance very receptive to energy, right? You can charge it so fast and rapidly. When we started all the research and we had multiple institutes look into that, I actually personally got interested in having the Emoto Institute test our products. Now, we know a naturopathic doctor from the Seattle area who's actually originally Japanese. And I didn't even think about asking him, and I didn't. I just had a phone call with him. We were talking, and then he told me that he was currently helping the Emoto Institute with some children's book or something. There's something interesting. I was like, oh, you're talking with the Emoto Institute? And he said, yeah. And I was like, well, I would be super interested if they could test our products and tell us what they see with the results. And he said, yeah, no problem. I'll give them a call. And then, we set up a call and we sent them the products, and then they tested. And it was a pretty amazing test because they found that the Quantum Bloc was able to change water so positively in 3 minutes, like no other device they had tested so far. And fast forward to about 2.5 weeks ago, they signed an exclusive agreement with us to actually import the Leela Quantum products to Japan and distribute them there, which they have never done in their history before, and that came from them. And that for me, I could care less about them distributing the products in general. But what fascinates me and what's so amazing is that that's the real statement. It's a great study results, but they want the products there. They want them to give them to other people because they see what it does. And that's the touching part for me on that end.
That's beautiful. Because I don't think any, regular person could just contact the office of Emoto and be like, hey, can you try our product? They probably wouldn't do that. So there was a divine path that led this block and this tech to be with him.
In a way, that's how it looks, yes.
Yeah, it feels like that too. And it's interesting. A lot of people are like, well, how do you know? How do you know it works? And I just tell them there's so many things in life that we don't understand. And then I was actually digging a little deeper, and I found that there was a study about placebo effect. And placebo effect is both something that's created in the mind and also something that's a shared consciousness, a shared belief. And this is really fascinating. A study published by PLOS Biology, quoted in Harvard Medical School. We have identified what goes on in the brain during placebo effect. Placebos are not all about releasing brain power. You also need the ritual of treatment. And that's a really big piece to talk about, because anything that we do, whether it's breath work or meditation, charging our food, loving kindness meditation, combined with tools like the Leela, the researchers found greater activity in the middle frontal gyrus brain region, which makes up about 1/3 of the frontal lobe. So how much of the conversation about placebo and about the frontal lobe and this findings, quoted from Harvard Medical School, which pretty much a gold standard, where we live here in the States. What do you think about that? What comes up for you when you hear about that study and about placebo in general and in conversations when it comes to Leela?
Well, so I really like, that, because indeed with our thoughts, we create the world, and we can move mountains almost with the way we think and how we feel. Frankly, it's not just thoughts. It's really just the whole energy behind it. And we really can. So from that standpoint, it's interesting, and it actually can be amplified by the quantum field. That's the weird part. I'm going to come into this whole placebo effect in a second, because we actually ruled that out for our products. But I think, and I actually know that there's more possible with everything if you leverage the quantum field, just because you can manifest everything so much quicker as long as it is in alignment. That is important, because whatever is not on your soul plan or like part of the universal plan, you can't manipulate it. It won't get any more support. It's not going to be subsidized, if you will, by quantum energy. But everything that is, gets boosted like crazy. And so can the placebo effect, which probably originates even in the quantum field to begin with.
That's what it feels like for me when I think, sorry to interrupt you, when I think about that portion of the brain that comes online with placebo. What if it's not placebo? What if it's a shared energetic awareness of what's actually there in the first place? And we call it placebo because we just have to find some kind of intellectual description.
Yeah, no, I would say you're totally on the right path with that.
So share with us more. You said you're going to share a little bit about placebo, because I vet everything very carefully. This was from a trusted friend, Luke, and many other people here in Austin. So I know it feels different. We're going to talk about charging the food and whatnot and the cards and all the products. but the placebo conversation, I'm sure it comes in at times. How do you expand that, and what does that actually mean for you?
Well, so the thing is that we obviously, when we provide scientific data and what different institutes and doctors' practices test, obviously we don't want to be told, well, this is all placebo, and you didn't look at that and didn't rule out placebo effects. Then I could tell people, well, but our placebo effect is much greater. But where would that end? So indeed, what you do in these cases, you do randomized, sham-controlled, single-blind and double-blind studies where you completely rule out the placebo effect. Meaning, if you do, as an example, test the quantum block, you use one quantum block that is charged and you use one that is not charged. And no one knows which one is charged and which one isn't charged, right? So that's the way to go about it. And so each time in double blind studies that were randomized, that was confirmed that in 100% of the cases, there were significant improvements visible in your blood, not in your specific blood, but in the blood of the test persons across the board. And it was very, very significant. And so the placebo effect was completely ruled out. And there was always a tiny little bit of effect of the device that wasn't charged. Interestingly, that can also have some other reasons to why, because the mandala itself has already a certain energy, obviously, and then maybe you have a little bit of placebo effect. So there was always something visible, but it was nothing, literally nothing compared to the actual charged quantum block. So we did look at that because that's an important topic, of course.
Yeah, and I'd never heard of dark field microscopy. Is it microscopy? How do you
can say dark field microscopy, or you can say live blood analysis.
Okay.
Either way, it's one and the same. And maybe the reason why you haven't heard about it, and maybe many listeners have not, is because 20 years ago, some authorities in the US decided that, we will just from now on charge every practitioner that wants to use this technology as a diagnosis tool $100,000 a year. And that's kind of what you do if you want something to be around.
Wow.
That is quite unique and amazing.
$100K to use the tech.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not kidding. And in Europe, it's still a widely used tool. I wonder if they will implement something like that at some point, but it's widely used. Like, you find a lot of practitioners that work with this because it's an amazing tool. It's literally the only tool where you can see in real time how your blood looks like, how your blood cells look like, your red blood cells, your white blood cells, and how they change. So, if you were to inject something, you could see what happens in real time. If you were to put your hands in the quantum block, you can see in real time what happens. And you can see blood clotting there. I mean, you could see paralysis of white blood cells. You can see so many different things. It's an amazing tool. And and the good thing is, even for people that don't know much about it, relatively quickly they understand at least the basics of how healthy blood looks like versus not healthy blood.
Yeah. In the research, they were stating that microorganisms can be detected, distortions of red blood cells, nutritional status, possibly undesirable bacteria or fungal life from this test. And this is what you did the blind study with. So how do you actually infuse into the block? You said one block was not charged, one block was. How do you charge the block?
Yeah, so the initial charging is a proprietary method that we can't share, but subsequently we just use our actual technology to charge those, and then the blocks become the extension of our technology. Because in the end of the day, once you have such a block, you can pretty much do the same thing what we're doing. You can, buy yourself a stainless steel water bottle and charge it in there with quantum energy, or infuse your favorite nutrition into it, because you can do that. That's what you can do, because we didn't want to keep this technology for ourselves alone. We wanted that everyone has access to it.
But the IP is proprietary. Why not release the IP?
Well, no one else could anyway do it, but that's the way we charge it though. We don't want to do it. And also you couldn't replicate it for commercial purposes without a license. So that is still something that we, have our hands on, because that would be a bummer.
If it was in the wrong hands with the wrong intention.
Yes.
Got it. So when I put food, or when I go to the cafe, or when I take my glass jar, it fits perfectly in mine, by the way. It's literally, this glass is like made. So if you guys have a ball jar at home, do the 24-ounce ball jar with your water. We use spring water. I place it in the block. 10 minutes? Is it 10 minutes for the water?
Well, the Emoto Institute tested 3 minutes in the Quantum Bloc. And for the Infinity Bloc, you can do something between, 30 seconds is already great, but 1 to 2 minutes is enough. And for my taste, 2 minutes in the Infinity Bloc would be the perfect charge.
Okay. So, maybe do some breathing and meditate for a moment. Can you charge anything, and does it matter the order that you place items into the block?
You can indeed charge anything in there. Just be aware that if you put 2 or more objects in there at the same time, then you commingle the frequencies. So usually you wouldn't want to do that unless it's something like, if glass is in there, it completely, that's a neutral thing, if you will. But
okay.
But then the cadence of, let's say you charge your water and then you take your water glass out, and then you charge your watch to take it out, and then charge your ring, all that doesn't matter. I would give it maybe 10, 15 seconds for the field to just be completely empty again. If you had something in there sitting for half a day, extend that period to a few minutes of just waiting time. But usually we just charge for a few minutes, and then 15 seconds wait time is fine. And there's nothing that, spills over.
Philipp, earlier I mentioned energy, and on your site, you talk a lot about life force energy, quantum energy, and we know it is chi and prana, and in the West, we call it energy, which I think is interesting. We all have certain descriptions of how we describe energy, and it's energy that we can't always see. When I feel good in my body, I can't see that I feel good. I just feel good. Life force energy, it reminds me of the closed organic cycle, and I'm sure you've heard of this. The sun shines on the grass, the cow eats the grass, then we eat the cow. So we're literally eating sunshine, photosynthesis, animal. It's a closed cycle of energy there. How would you describe the quantum energy with the closed organic cycle? What do you think the relationship is there between the two?
Well, the quantum energy is part of all of it. But what the pure quantum energy field then can do, it eliminates or neutralizes harmful and destructive frequencies. I was going to say negative, but negative is not the right word, because it's all about destructive or life supporting, consciousness supporting. So meaning that if the cow was treated in a very negative way, maybe the cow was beaten up like every day because it didn't do what the farmer wanted or whatever, and then has a very bad experience on that farm when it gets killed, right? Those are energies that you also take in if you eat that meat. It's not necessarily pleasant energy, and that energy is there though because it's imprinted in that meat. If you were to take that piece of meat and put it in the block, you neutralize that. You basically reset it, and you optimize its energetic structure so you don't take in these harmful frequencies. That's how it works. It
makes sense to me because I've been to certain yoga classes or certain sound healings or certain meditative classes, and some of them are way better than others, right? I'm sure you've dealt with this where you work with a healer, you work with a practitioner. We can't necessarily explain that. It's just something that we feel. This is the same quantum experience when we have better results with one healer or practitioner than others, yes?
Yes, it's similar. There, obviously, if you talk about practitioners, there's like a personal experience and aspect as well, right? So you may like Ashtanga yoga, I may like Kundalini yoga more just because of who I am and who you are. And then that by itself may already may not make me like an Ashtanga teacher as much as a Kundalini. So I think there's a lot to it, but on a principle level, yeah, it's pretty much the same thing. But it's all about, experiences and energies as they happen. They're carried forward. Similar thing to, and this is interesting, and you're the first one I'm actually telling this publicly here, because we literally just found out 2 weeks ago. So let's say you have a car accident, it had it 10 years ago, that adds a traumatic experience in your body and in your energetic system. And maybe it was with some specific, I don't know, it was a green car that crossed, and the next time you see a green car that crossed, you're right there again. So you notice it's still there. So what happens at birth is, while so wonderful, usually a traumatic experience as well.
Yeah.
We now found out that with the quantum block and the infinity block, you can actually harmonize your birth date, which is quite profound. And all you need to do is you write down on a piece of paper your name, your first name and your last name, and your birth date. Just write out the month. So if it's April, write down April and not 4. So April 21st, 1978, or whatever it is, on one paper, put it in, and it does it for you. It's amazing. It works every time. We've tested it now 40 times. It's rapid. And yeah, so it's because we have these experiences, and we have the backpack. We come with a backpack, possibly from past lives, or
definitely from past lives,
with stories.
Yeah.
And we carry that, and then we add to it, right, with the car accident, with birth, with mother hitting us because she got frustrated when we were little and we were not doing what we're supposed to, and I don't know, the first girlfriend laughs at us and has another guy. That's another experience. So we add to this backpack, gets heavier and heavier. But the path really is to release more and more of the stuff that's in the backpack so that you can be more free.
Yeah.
And that is kind of what that helps with. And we don't talk much about it because that's such an energetic level. And so many people are so focused on the material and the physical that we mainly talk about the blood, certain other things and what it does to your physical body. But these are aspects that actually fascinate me way more than the physical benefits of it.
Do you do a specific blessing or meditation when you write the birthday on the paper?
Nothing needed. You can, if you want, if it makes you feel better, you can also put this intention in there, because then it feels more like a ritual, but really it automatically does it.
It's amazing. I have a mentor and he's very deep into biogeometry. I don't know if that science is in this as well, or is that a separate field of study, the biogeometry?
Well, biogeometry would be separate,
mm-hmm.
Even though you could argue that the mandala has to do with biogeometry, and then certainly even that we have the cube form of that by itself is already a certain, powerful biogeometry. But yeah, I would still call it a separate field.
I remember when my son was born, you're right, birth can be traumatic. You're taking a soul from one area and bringing it here into the 3D. It doesn't always work perfectly. And I remember we had some biogeometry and it reminded me of the mandala that's on top of the block. And we put it next to my son when he was in the NICU. And we were praying and we meditated, and things worked out. Things worked out in a positive way. There is so much when it comes to the wisdom of the heart. If you look at Heart Math Institute and how they're doing coherence and things like this. Have you done any tests anecdotally where you've had healers or practitioners at the same time do the same behaviors or the same meditation with the block, across the United States or across the world? Have you ever explored something like that?
Yeah, so that was a different kind of work, but it's been done several times, actually. Probably I've participated in 10, and then there were several other groups that just kept doing it. Probably it's been done 100 times already, where people would meet, maybe 10, 20, 30 people that all had a block, and then the energy of the block, consciously, we kind of connected, And it's important to not have expectations in this type of work. That's what I also told people, because first of all, it cannot be manipulated, but you want to have a work that is actually powerful. So let's say, if there's an area of, war, or like bad starving, bad fires, or whatever that is, we want to bring healing to that area. It's important to not put our thoughts and ego beliefs into that. Like, Putin needs to die. Like, okay, let's use the quantum field to make that happen. That's like the worst you could do. It's like, don't. But if you want to do something, you can help and direct the energy to just be there and have the field sorted out. You don't need to sort out anything. You could just, let go and it happens. But you can help with this type of work to actually direct the energy to certain places and even lay it all around the earth. Sounds crazy, but it's actually possible. And with that, you can help to increase the consciousness levels of certain regions, even almost as if you were to put the block physically there for a while. That's pretty much how it works. You're probably familiar with David Hawkins' work.
David Hawkins is one of my most quoted authors on the show. Letting Go is an incredible book. I listen to it on the regular, power versus force and the frequency scale, going from shame all the way to enlightenment. I mean, we're very well versed on that, and we'll link some resources for episodes where we've explored that too. Why do you mention that?
I mention it because a lot of people seem to be familiar with the Hawkins scale.
Yes.
And then they can understand when I talk about consciousness level or help increase the consciousness level. And that's pretty much what it's about. And that's what the products do. And so on the Hawkins scale, it's fascinating. It only is set up to 1,000. We've now developed blocks that go way above 1,000. Not the ones that are publicly available. Those are, so 942 on the Hawkins scale is if you were to upgrade your infinity block to the 4th generation. That's at 942 already. So everyone can actually do that. And you can upgrade it further, even above 1,000. But we've been able to manage it to go well beyond that. We have one here that's at 2,200.
At your
which
house?
is unbelievable at first, because you're like, oh, well, it only goes until 1,000. No, that was at the time because Hawkins himself first couldn't see any further. And second of all, at that time when he created the scale, it wasn't actually possible that you could have a physical object with that high vibration, because the vibration on Earth has changed over time and it constantly keeps changing. So in 3 years, we'll be at a completely different space, and it actually is rapidly increasing. And it is possible now to have such values, and without overloading your nervous system. I mean, the 2,200 would be too much to sleep in. Yeah. You couldn't do that. But it's a powerful energy.
Share more about when you say the frequency of the earth has changed. What do you mean by that?
So someone like Roman would explain to you that maybe 10 years ago, roughly, the earth actually became a full conscious creator. Now, for some people, that may be crazy, but earth is not just some ball that is just, it's a being.
It's magic. Right? It's literally magic.
Yes.
It's insane.
And so explain in a different way, you could just say, really the energy that's coming from Earth and that is happening here on Earth or available on Earth has shifted. The vibration has changed from a much lower vibration to a much higher vibration. So what does that mean? If suddenly the whole environment offers the possibility for all the beings on the planet to actually also increase their own vibration. It's like, now you have the soil and all the seeds can suddenly grow, right? Before that, you didn't really have the soil for so much more awareness and consciousness unlocking. That is now possible. And it's really not, it's honestly not Earth we need to be concerned about. it's us and our own personal like development. And so now everything we do, we can solve way quicker. That's the thing. So if 10 years ago I worked with someone to solve a problem or an energetic blockage, it may take me an hour to do that, or 2 hours, or whatever, however long it would take. The same situation nowadays, I could solve like 5, 6, 7 times faster. And that's just because of the energy that's available.
What's one of the biggest ways that the Leela Quantum has impacted you on a heart level, on a soul level, just personally? How has it affected your life?
Really on a heart level, because it helped me to develop everything even quicker. So, and the analogy really for me is like life. Here's the picture. We're on a bike. It's kind of like an old bike, and it's a dirt road, and we're riding it, and there are obstacles, flat tires, a storm, whatever. That's life, And then there's someone over there 300 yards away that's, hey, I got a new Lamborghini here, and by the way, it's driving on an Autobahn. You want to come in here and hop in. Goes into the same direction. It's all parallel, right? It's your path. You go in, you will be wherever you go way quicker in a more comfortable way. You still have flat tires. You may still go through a storm, because that's life. We have challenges, and it would be very boring if we didn't. But you go through them in a different way, and you have much more potential to get to everything quicker. And life is not really about getting anywhere quicker, because it's a paradox, because we want to be content how we are in the moment, right? And not having to be something else or somewhere else. That's very important. So be content. But that paradox still is true, because the more we can unlock of our consciousness, the happier we'll get. The more we get stuff out of our backpack, the more free we become. Yeah. And that's what happiness in the end is all about. And then we can truly live from who we are, and not from all the impacts of what we have laying in our backpack.
Is there something you feel comfortable sharing personally about the tech specifically, like something that you've released or something that you worked through, just some way that it directly impacted you?
Yeah, well, the heart opening actually, and the deep connection to myself is something that I still felt I needed a lot of work on. So I worked with intentions with that. And even today, like I feel there's always something that can be done. So I really try to not be in the state of, okay, now I need to like get there and I want to be there, because I really want to maintain my presence in the moment and also being content. But at the same time, I want to continue to work on myself and just develop. So I do put my picture inside the Infinity Block every day for, some time. It's always different. As an example, it's another way of how you can leverage that. Actually, you don't have to physically put your hands in there. You can, and it's more physical that way. But to take in the energy, you can also put your picture in. And then one thing with my son. So he's 14. He rides motocross, and he's a pretty heavy motocross rider. So he races national races and stuff like that. He broke both of his wrists in the beginning of November. And it was the saddest thing for him, because at first he couldn't do anything anymore. And then he wanted to race. That's all he wanted to do. It's like his passion. And so he asked the doctor, and the doctor said, well, it'll take at least 7 months until you can carefully go back on the bike with braces, and then it may take you another month or so until you can maybe start doing a race again. 2 months after it happened, he was already back on the bike, and 2 weeks later, he had his next race. And so what did we do in the first 3 weeks? We put his wrists in every day in the morning and in the evening physically for like 10 minutes. We had the, how do you call them? The pictures they take in the hospital.
The x-rays.
Yeah, the x-rays, exactly. We had the x-ray pictures, put those in for 3 weeks every day for, like half an hour or an hour on top of that. And we're like, okay, let's see what happens. And then the doc was like, it's crazy. And he himself told him, you can go back on the bike now. everything healed perfectly. Even the growth plates that have been shattered were perfectly together again. And yeah, this is anecdotal, but again, there's so much
Yeah.
other evidence with studies that I feel it's fine to also bring in some anecdotal studies, because it was amazing. It
Well,
was really
sometimes
amazing.
anecdotal is all we have, in a world where we're drowning in information and studies and science and logical stuff. Sometimes all we have is our experience. And it's interesting. I don't usually talk about this. I have a picture of myself right here. And if you're watching on YouTube, I'm wearing like this little railroad hat, my birds in the background. I was told by a healer, a friend of mine, Christine Hassler, to carry this in my wallet. I'm actually going to put this picture right now in the Quantum Bloc.
That's actually a great idea. And I can tell you that we've done research regarding that already. So this is not a real study, but it has been researched and looked at. It does work. So I give you one example of one customer that actually reported that. She's an older woman and she has a daughter that lives on a different continent. Now, that daughter has been depressive, very, very depressive, pretty much all of her life. Like they can't do anything. She's been at every doctor, even with pills and whatever, nothing works. And then at some point, the mother is pretty tuned in, does a lot of meditation, all that. So she had the impulse to put her daughter in, starting basically with baby pictures in the Infinity Blog. And she did that. And always when she had the feeling, okay, now it was enough, maybe after a week of every day putting this little picture in, she moved on kind of like to the next age and next stage and next stage. And without telling the daughter and talking about that to her, the difference was absolutely mind-blowing. Like she really came out of this depression. She started to behave differently, talk differently. Their relationship improved. And then we heard that because she reported it in our Telegram group. And yeah, then we told some other people about it, and we did some research ourselves to have some healers look at it, what happens actually if you put the picture in. So yeah, there's some healing now happening for that little boy. It's crazy how we think about it, but in the quantum field, everything is stored, all the information is stored, all the negative experiences, also all the positive experience, and distance and time doesn't really matter. So if we can get that out of the way, then yeah, it's totally logical, right? That it is possible.
It's so interesting because ever since I was that age or younger, I've always had this like discontent with the way the world is. It's been in there. So I'm curious how this will play out. I'll definitely update everyone. This has been an incredible conversation. I really wanted to focus on the science, but I feel like we uncovered a lot of practical spirituality as well. Before you go, I do want to talk about really quickly the necklace. So I've been wearing the necklace, and you have clothing, you have hats, water bottles. This is all infused with the quantum technology, with the Leela Quantum. So the necklace is interesting because this is something, they don't lose charge, right? Like nothing that arrives loses a charge. It just gets new tools or new experiences put into it.
Yeah. So the necklace doesn't ever lose its energy or frequency, possibly in a few hundred years. And if you give it away to people to carry it in the next 6 weeks, 10 different people, and you get it back after 6 weeks, it still has the same energy as it does have now. So it doesn't take on any experiences from other people or even yourself, because it's our target's sort of sealed with enough quantum energy. And in the capsule itself, you have certain healing frequencies included, as well as the molecular frequencies of 78 different vitamins, minerals, and organic plant extracts that are vital for the human body to function well. So you get that in frequency form. And so then you have these titanium beads inside. People always ask, so what are those for? And they're charged with pure quantum energy. And you can get a lot of pure quantum energy into titanium. And so they function as a booster. So those frequencies of the capsule are boosted out so that when you wear it or put it in your pocket, your whole system literally benefits from it.
It's a good conversation piece too. People always ask me, what is that thing you're wearing? Philipp, this has been great. You guys, if you're feeling the frequency, if you're feeling the resonance here, Leela, LEELAQ.com. you can use the code Josh10. Thank you for the discount. We appreciate you so much. These products are already very affordable. We look at a lot of healing products out there. Some of these healing products are like 5 to 10 grand. And you guys made it very affordable. So, you can start with the necklace. You can work up to the Quantum Bloc. The code is Josh10. As we say goodbye at this intersection of life and wellness and quantum, and even the pentagon we talked about, the mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, financial. How do you live your life well? What does that mean to you, Philipp, the soul, right now on earth, to have well-being, to have wellness? How would you define that for yourself?
Well, for me, it's about feeling good in the end of the day, and also see that the people around me can feel good with me in presence there. And what does that mean for me personally? It means to be in good energy, to make sure I don't overdose on stress or on work on one end, that I don't overdose on chocolate, which I love. I love chocolate, for example. And I don't, I still eat a lot of chocolate because I just love it. It makes it, I feel good when I eat chocolate, but I don't want to eat too much of it. So I live a healthy life. I don't, I try to just balance things, but it doesn't, I don't have to force it on me. It just comes out of, okay, I know what the limits are to feel good in all of this. I try to exercise. I do, a lot of Kundalini yoga. I see that I have, used our technology, just a lot of different aspects because there's so much to it. And get sunshine also in between. And those are some of the things. And what's important, what I did for many years in the time where I had struggle was really every evening before or when I went to bed to just tune in with myself and just to feel, just 1 or 2 minutes to feel, how was my day? How do I feel? And that's the first thing you can do when you wake up. And it just adds this extra moment of self-connection, which I find very important and useful and helpful, because we tend to, in this world, I had this for many years, where you fall asleep literally with your phone in your hand almost. And then the first thing you do is like, okay, what meetings do I have today? And what's the first email that pops in? But that's what stresses us out. We're not here for that. We can do that after we tuned in, after we did yoga, and let's feel good first and then do all the other things.
Beautiful wisdom. Thank you, Philipp, for sharing that. It's been a pleasure. I know you've been across the world and many years to develop this. So we appreciate you. We appreciate you bringing this tech to the public. I'm excited to see what happens next in the next few years. And keep us updated. Again, you guys, the code is Josh10. It's leelaq.com. Philipp, thank you for being here with us. We really appreciate you, man.
Thank you. I really appreciate it as well.
You guys, we're talking more about the quantum, the block. I'm going to let you know what happens with this photograph as well over time. Wellnessforce.com/community. Until Philipp and I see you again, we're both wishing you love and wellness. We'll talk to you soon. If you loved that episode, you'll love the episodes linked right here on this page. Also, if you have any thoughts, drop it in the comments below. Don't forget to hit subscribe and also get notified when new episodes come out delivered right to you.